You can see there's hundreds and hundreds of shipwrecks and plane crashes. This cluster here has got to be Flight 19.
This story might make you think twice before your next flight. December 5th, 1945. 5 U.S. Navy bombers lifted off from Fort Lauderdale on what should have been a simple 3-hour training run. Clear skies, calm waters, an experienced flight leader. By all accounts, nothing should have gone wrong. But everything went wrong, because none of these bomber jets ever came back. No distress calls, no wreckage, no answers. Everyone was left utterly confused.
Flight 19 is the single most important part of the Bermuda Triangle mystery.
What followed wasn't just a tragedy. It became the origin of one of the craziest mysteries in aviation history. It wasn't just the loss of aircraft, it was the silence that followed. In an age when radar was limited and communication systems were still evolving, the idea that 5 planes could vanish in formation was unthinkable. The Navy scrambled to look for the crash sites, but found nothing. The radios stayed quiet, and the absence of even a single clue created something far worse than panic. It created possibility, and with possibility came myth. And nearly 80 years later, Flight 19 still haunts the skies it vanished into. To understand it all, let's go back to the day it happened. What exactly happened? Flight 19 was a standard post-war training operation, part of the Navy's ongoing effort to keep its pilots sharp in peacetime. Though the guns of World War II had fallen silent just months earlier, the need for readiness had not. The 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers were scheduled for a navigation and bombing drill, a well-practiced circuit designed to mimic the conditions of a real mission without the dangers of combat. The flight plan was straightforward. The squadron would fly east from Fort Lauderdale over the open waters of the Atlantic to a designated bombing range where they would conduct target practice. From there, they would turn north over the familiar shape of Grand Bahama Island before banking southwest for the return leg home. The entire route formed a near-perfect triangle, a routine geometry for training, though in hindsight, eerily symbolic of what was to come. Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, a battle-hardened aviator, was also on this mission, which reinforced the idea that this was just another day in the air. The atmosphere before takeoff reflected that ease. The young aviators chatted and joked as they performed pre-flight checks, their movements second nature from countless hours of drilling. There was no sense of foreboding, only the disciplined routine of military precision, mixed with the light-hearted camaraderie of men who trusted one another implicitly. With clear skies overhead and a reliable leader at the front, there was every reason to believe that Flight 19 would be airborne, efficient, and back before sundown. At 2:10 p.m., the 5 Avengers roared down the runway and lifted into the pristine Florida sky. Their formation was tight, their trajectory smooth, and their mission underway. The first leg went exactly as planned. The squadron reached the bombing range and executed their target practice with precision, releasing their payloads over the churning Atlantic and circling back into formation with practiced ease. From the outside, everything about Flight 19 appeared textbook. The clear weather, the mechanical reliability of the aircraft, and the well-rehearsed flight plan all pointed toward another successful run. Then, without warning, Lieutenant Taylor's voice crackled over the radio. His compass was malfunctioning. He couldn't determine their heading. What had begun as a routine mission now teetered on the edge of uncertainty. For aviators flying hundreds of miles over open ocean, the compass is more than an instrument. It's their lifeline. With no visual landmarks and the Atlantic stretching endlessly in all directions, even a small navigational error could quickly turn catastrophic. Taylor's uncertainty bled into the airwaves. He believed they were flying over the Florida Keys, far off from their actual position. His internal compass, once forged in the fires of war, was now clouded by doubt. The student pilots, reliant on him for direction, were suddenly leaderless in a sky that had turned unfamiliar. The aircraft were still aloft, their engines humming steadily, but the cohesion of the mission had fractured. On the ground, operators tried to assist, but the confusion only deepened. Taylor's flight seemed to be flying further from land rather than toward it. The crisp confidence of takeoff had dissolved into disorientation. The sharp discipline of the formation gave way to frantic recalculations, voices overlapping on the radio, and a growing sense of unease. Weather turns. As Flight 19 struggled to reorient itself, the weather, so serene at takeoff, began to shift with unsettling speed. Dark clouds crept across the sky, blotting out the sun and casting the ocean below in a grim, shadowed light. Visibility plummeted. The once calm Atlantic had transformed into a roiling, unpredictable expanse, further disorienting the already confused squadron. Inside the cockpits, the student pilots clung to their training, but the conditions were overwhelming. Their world had narrowed to a storm-rattled fuselage, streaks of lightning in the distance, and the fractured voice of Lieutenant Taylor over the radio. With their leader's compass malfunctioning and no clear position, they were flying blind, reliant solely on Taylor's experience and judgment. But Taylor himself, burdened by uncertainty, was growing increasingly unsure of their location. Radio contact, their last link to safety, began to break apart. Commands drowned in static, voices garbled and fading. With no clear visual cues and a storm building around them, the flight was adrift in sound and shadow. They were cut off from the ground, from each other, and from the safety they'd taken for granted. Desperation. As the storm intensified and navigational certainty dissolved, so did the composure of Lieutenant Charles Taylor. There was confusion in his voice, and of course, he wanted a solution as much as anyone else did at that moment. Radio transmissions captured his mounting desperation as he tried to make sense of their position. "We can't find West. Everything is wrong," he said in one garbled message. His calm demeanor, honed over years of combat, was giving way to a creeping panic. The radio static grew louder, more intrusive. Communications were riddled with hisses, interruptions, and fading signals. Every attempt at clarity was swallowed by interference, transforming life or death instructions into fragments and echoes. Taylor's voice would break through, only to disappear again, swallowed by the storm and distance. The student pilots, tethered to Taylor by sound alone, grew more anxious. Their voices cut across the airwaves, asking for bearings, requesting directions, clinging to any guidance he could offer. In their tones, fear was unmistakable. These were not seasoned combat pilots, but trainees, now lost at sea, trusting a leader who no longer trusted his own instruments. Vanishing without a trace. As night descended over the Atlantic, the last radio transmissions from Flight 19 flickered and died. One by one, the voices fell silent, replaced by a void of static. The ground crews, still hoping for a miracle, clung to their receivers, but no further contact was made. The 5 aircraft, carrying 14 men, had vanished. The U.S. Navy wasted no time. A massive search and rescue operation was launched within hours. Dozens of aircraft and ships were dispatched to scour the last known coordinates. crews combed thousands of miles of ocean, but the sea offered nothing back, not a wing, not a life vest. Flight 19 had vanished so completely that it was as if it had never taken off. It was as if Flight 19 had been erased from existence. Adding to the mystery, a PBM Mariner rescue plane sent out to locate Flight 19 also disappeared just 20 minutes after takeoff. It carried 13 crew members. A tanker in the area later reported seeing an explosion and a fiery trail on the water's surface, suggesting the Mariner may have detonated mid-air. But like the Avengers, its wreckage was never recovered. The disappearance of the rescue plane deepened the legend and fueled speculation that something beyond normal explanation was at play. In the aftermath of Flight 19's disappearance, official investigations struggled to offer a clear explanation. What could cause 5 U.S. Navy bombers and a rescue plane to vanish without a trace? With no wreckage, no distress signals, and no survivors, the theories quickly multiplied, some grounded in science, others spiraling into the surreal. The most widely accepted explanation is human error. Lieutenant Charles Taylor, despite his experience, may have become disoriented and misjudged their location. At one point, he radioed that he believed they were flying over the Florida Keys, a miscalculation that could have led them away from the mainland and further out into the Atlantic. If Taylor incorrectly assumed his position, he may have directed the flight on a fatal heading. The Bermuda Triangle, long associated with mysterious disappearances, has been blamed for everything from magnetic anomalies that interfere with instruments to underwater methane gas eruptions capable of destabilizing aircraft engines or causing massive turbulence. What fuels all of these theories is the same frustrating truth. There is no evidence, no wreckage, no black boxes, no distress flares. The complete absence of physical proof has turned Flight 19 into a canvas onto which every kind of explanation, scientific or fantastical, can be projected. The Bermuda Triangle. While strange occurrences in the North Atlantic were documented long before 1945, the disappearance of Flight 19 is what cemented the Bermuda Triangle in the public imagination. This incident transformed a vague area of the ocean into a symbol of the unexplained, a triangle stretching roughly from Florida to Bermuda to Puerto Rico, where ships and planes reportedly vanished without a trace. Flight 19 wasn't the first disappearance in the region, but it was the most dramatic. The loss of 5 military aircraft, followed by the vanishing of a rescue plane and 13 more men, captured national attention. The scale, suddenness, and complete lack of wreckage fed a narrative that something strange, something beyond conventional explanation, was happening in these waters. Within a few decades, the area would become infamous, featured in documentaries, books, and conspiracy theories. Other incidents only deepened the legend. In 1918, the USS Cyclops, a Navy supply ship with over 300 people on board, disappeared in the region without sending a distress signal. In later years, private planes, cargo ships, and even commercial airliners were reported missing, often under similarly bizarre circumstances. But it was Flight 19 that gave the Triangle its staying power. Why are pilots still terrified? Nearly 8 decades after Flight 19 vanished, the incident continues to cast a long shadow over aviation. While modern aircraft are equipped with GPS, satellite communication, real-time weather updates, and advanced navigational systems, many pilots still admit to feeling a flicker of unease when flying over the Bermuda Triangle. Flight 19 is still studied in aviation history and safety courses as a powerful example of how minor errors combined with unpredictable conditions, can spiral into catastrophe. But more than any technical lesson, it also shows us the human side of flying, how stress, fatigue, and split-second decisions can shape outcomes, even in peacetime. What makes the disappearance so haunting isn't just the mystery, it's the preventability. A decorated combat pilot and his team of young trainees vanished not in a war zone, but during a standard training flight, in familiar skies, under clear weather. They had likely flown the same route many times. That irony, the ordinary mission gone horribly wrong, is what continues to disturb pilots today. 5 planes, 14 men, no distress calls, no debris, no trace. Flight 19 didn't disappear during the battle. It vanished in calm conditions, near home base. That's what makes it chilling. The silence that followed gave rise to a legend. Some blame mechanical failure. Others point to sudden weather changes or stranger theories. But one truth remains: they were there, and then they weren't. Flight 19 didn't just disappear into the Bermuda Triangle, it created the myth. Nearly 80 years later, we still don't have answers, and maybe that's why it sticks with us. Could it happen again? Are we ever truly prepared for the unpredictable? Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like this.